Pierre-Antoine de SELANCY, Managing Partner of 17CAPITAL. Welcome to IPEM. How are you finding the conversations over the last 2 days?
Good morning, Sam. Good to see you. Great conversation, lots of people. I think the mood is good, pretty improving from last year, M&A resuming, and we're having lots of exciting conversation.
NAV Finance, really topical.
I've heard the name before.
You've heard of it, I hope. But really interesting, lots of people talking about it, lots of GPs, lots of LPs. Tell me why NAV Finance has become such a hot topic.
Well, NAV Finance is about providing leverage to the private equity industry and using the value of the portfolios as a base. And the competition is fierce among GPs to raise the next fund. And NAV Finance help, and especially NAV loans, so loans to private equity funds, helps them improve the performance for their investors. And any tool that these operators, that is investors, can use to improve the multiple, improve the performance for their investors, they will use and they will look into. So that's what's driving the growth. It's a competition between the GPs.
Tell me a little bit about the sort of use of those loans, use of those funds then. What are the sort of dynamics? Break it down for me.
So the huge majority of these loans, more than 95%, is actually used to invest further in portfolio companies. The buy and build strategies have gone from 30% to 50% of the buyout funds today. And that's where NAV loans are used. So if you think of a fund that is deployed, 85, 90%, we help them invest 100% or even a bit more into portfolio companies and fund M&A.
So it's really all about optimizing portfolios to create shareholder value, to make stronger companies.
Yes. That's really the driver. And within that, you might identify two different allocation: M&A for 85 and maybe 5 to 10% to sold for over-levered companies, but the huge majority of the volume is driven by M&A activity.
So let's talk a little bit about leverage, because it's a sort of quite an emotive word, but in the sort of leverage buyout space, that's what it's all about. So how does the leverage that you're putting in through the loans fit generally within a portfolio?
Well, first of all, general partners, private equity fund managers are experts in use of leverage. They've raised $6 trillion of leverage finance, leverage debts in the last 10 years. So it's something they understand really well. And NAV loans come into play when the fund is 4, 5, 6 years old, when there's good visibility on the portfolio, and the added leverage there is used to continue to create value. But also it's based on companies having been owned for a few years, and then there's good visibility on how they're performing, are they ahead of plan, behind plan. That's how it's helping improve the value creation.
And how about the banking sector and NAV loans? It feels to me like they've got their subscription lines. That's a good product for them. It's the right risk-reward return sort of profile. Are they increasingly using or getting into the NAV loan space, or is it too distinct?
So the subscription line market is, just to put things in perspective, it's $800 billion, and it's a large market. Almost every bank is taking part in this market. The NAV loans market comes after the subscription lines, when the portfolio is complete. And some of them are looking into it, typically in a very low loan to value, so below 5%. But you have maybe a handful of banks, maybe a dozen, looking at that market. The regulatory capital allocation is quite different. Being backed by a portfolio of private assets is a lot more expensive than being backed by signature investors with a AAA quality as investors. So it's very different, and not that many are looking into it at the moment. And it's also a smaller market for the moment.
It's interesting, actually. So how are LPs sort of responding to NAV loans when they have conversations with GPs? I mean, obviously it's a newer product for them to understand. I mean, it feels like more and more LPs understand its use, optimization, that kind of thing. Is that the sort of conversations you're having, or how's it going?
I think it all comes down to the trust and the relationship between the GP and its investors, the limited partners. And there's a study done by a very prominent advisor called Reed Partners that 85% of the LPs actually supporting NAV loans is they're meant to create more value, and that's really what they are. So I think the LPs are starting to understand what the value creation process is, and some of these NAV loans are submitted to the advisory committee. Not all of them, but some of them. And there's typically a huge support from investors on that.
And presumably conferences like this is where GPs and LPs get together, talk to providers of the loans like yourselves, and have discussions about using them.
Yeah, well, this is a place where, for us, it's a place where we have both fundraising meeting, but also deal sourcing meeting. You know, all the GPs in this conference are potential clients of ours on the investment front, and we're trying to explain to them, you know, if the leaders of the industry are using this tool, you should be looking into it as well, and all the leaders are here as well. So it's an important moment, and yeah, I think every tool that these managers can use to improve the performance, to stand out from the competition, and again, the competition on the fundraising scene is fierce. Like it's an LP would see 1,000 ppm per year. The fundraising time, the average fundraising time today is 22 months for a buyout fund, which means that an LP will have probably 1,800, maybe more LPs, ppm in front of him. Any day of the week, you have 1,800 investment opportunities, so you need to make sure you're going for the right one. That's what's putting pressure on the GPs to use more tools, create more value for the LPs.
Let's talk a little bit about the industry as a whole. There's quite a bit of consolidation going on, particularly in the sort of mid-market space. How do you see that continuing going forward? I mean, you had your own deal with Oaktree, for example. Yeah. How do you see the industry sort of evolving a little bit from that perspective? I
think there's been a little bit of a pause over the last 2 years because a lot of these transactions are based on how much money can be raised by the managers in the future. And that's been a very big question mark. You know, the fundraising environment has been more difficult. And so the value of fund management companies has been more difficult to assess, but there's no doubt that there's continued consolidation. And LPs also are happier to have less managers in their portfolio. And they can talk to one team and have several strategies, have the private equity, the private credit, the infrastructure managed by one organization that they trust. It's going to make things easier. And also it's going to give them more power when they have to negotiate fees, better terms, SMAs. They're going to have more power if they have several strategies with the same manager. So we see a continuous consolidation.
So do you think this is quite a sort of healthy phase for the market, in the sense that some firms probably are struggling a little bit more to fundraise, some are consolidating, a little bit going on? I mean, is that leading to a healthier sort of ecosystem?
Healthier, more mature, more competitive than ever. I think a lot more GPs today versus what happened in the global financial crisis, you know, back in 2008, 2009. I think a lot more investors have understood that everything lies with the clients, and the clients are the limited partners, and you need to do what is right for them. That's the only driver. You know, whatever you do, whether it's buying a manager, whether it's selling, getting a new shareholder in your asset management business, whether it's using NAV loans for yourself, for the funds, everything has to be focused on one objective: making your investors happy. And that's increasing competition, and it's definitely making the industry more mature and healthier.
Pierre-Antoine, great to see you.
Thank you very much, Sam.